gold, ability materials, gear, training materials. I have hoarded all of these, and now I will use them to build the characters and teams. I am Dogbert. I will be your guide on this journey as we try to discover if they are worth it. Hello and welcome to Worth It. I am Dogbert. This is where I review characters and or teams as needed. And today we're talking about the Bionic Avengers, the first four that we have. So no Hulkbuster. We'll talk a little bit about him as we're going through things though. But no official recommendations or anything yet until we get him and actually play him. So starting off with Iron Man, his pros, he is very high damage. He is a damage dealer. That's what he's supposed to do. So that is quite good that he does that. He can extend all debuffs, including trauma, stun, ability block, all of them. He's one of those few characters, kind of like Scarlet Witch can still do that. Doc Ock can too as well. And I think even Scarlet Spider might as well, if I remember correctly. He can apply defense down on his basic and on any assist and a counter. So if he gets called for assist or counter, he's going to apply defense down with that basic as well. It's quite nice for extra damage onto characters and enemies that you need to get down and just want them to take more damage. He does give all allies crit and crit damage, a little bit more for tech allies, and then more for Bionic Avengers, and then more for Bionic Avengers and raids. You'll see that. He can be used in both the War, Red Hulk, and Death Scourge, whoever the Death Horseman ends up being. This is because he has that Wave 1 Avenger tag, allowing him to be paired up and used if needed, maybe as a replacement team up with Thor, because he's a Wave 1 Avenger. We'll have to see how that plays out with the War Scourge once we get to it. His cons, his ultimate, which is quite a nice ultimate, but it only does a single target. Even if it just did a cleave rather than a whole AoE, it would be quite nice too. But unfortunately, it's just single. Most of his energy generation for the team and everything is tied to this being in raids. It doesn't work outside of raids. Although outside of raids, when you use him with the full team, it's kind of limited because he is considered a legendary. That means if you wanted to take the team into Dark Dimension, he'd be separated from them into that legendary category and legendary nodes. He has no control, meaning he has like no blind, no stun, no ability block in his kit. He's pretty much just damage. He uses gamma radiation, which is something we got to think about now. It says we already got to build Hulk. You're going to have another character on here, Vision, who uses gamma radiation. Are we getting into a gamma radiation type of lack of, shall we say? Kind of like how we had a ton of Ozform the characters with the Web Warriors come out. We had Miasma before that. There was something else just before. I can't remember what it was. We've had a lot where the mini uniques are all the same. So his ISO 8 recommendation for him is absolutely positively all day long Raider. He does damage. He gets a lot of crit damage, a lot of crit chance. This will just increase that, making him crit more, making more big numbers, which is what he wants to do. He does damage. His T4 recommendation, his basic is only recommended. It is nice to have a nice recommendation. It's almost required. But how often are you going to really use the basic is the question, because there's so much energy with this team being flung around that you're going to be using the ultimate and special a lot. Maybe not hitting that basic as much as you'd like, but it's still a recommended T4. His special is absolutely required. That's that's T4 is what makes it, so he extends all those debuffs. So you absolutely want that. His ultimate is nice to have. It makes his ultimate do even more damage with bigger numbers. Bigger, nicer numbers are nice. They're nice to see. They're fun to have. But it's definitely not recommended or required. It is just a nice to have. And his passive absolutely is required. More crit damage for him and his team. Absolutely want that more and more crit chance as well. Moving on to Vision. He's gotten quite good with his rework. He does give Bionic Avengers and himself defense up on spawn. He does give the entire team focus, and he has actually got pretty good focus himself. His special is an ability block that gives Viv Vision energy as well. Having an ability block that's only 4 energy is quite nice. The fact that he gives Viv extra energy on top of that is quite nice as well. He can clear positive effects from all enemies using his ultimate. That is gigantic. That is huge. And on top of that, his ultimate does really good damage too. His special also gives that energy outside of raids. He's not tied to raids that give out that energy to Viv. He can do it outside as well. His cons, he is a bit squishy, so if he starts taking some hits, you're going to notice it. He's the squishy one right now on the team, I think, between him and Deathlock. And one interesting thing I noticed about him is he uses mystic gear in his unique. I'm talking about the one that uses that mini unique like gamma radiation. That piece actually uses mystic gear. So when you're building him, if you're looking to take him to the dark dimension, you got to keep that in mind, that you're going to put a little bit of mystic gear into him. Not much, but with all the mystic gear needed for other characters, you just want to keep this in mind. This is similar to OG Spider-Man, in which he uses tech on that piece, whereas all the rest of the stuff is bio. In this case, he uses tech on the rest of the stuff, but this one is just mystic. And of course, he uses gamma radiation. Talked about that already with Iron Man, that we're probably coming to a gamma radiation kind of drought, because we'll be using it on so many characters. He does have a minus speed bar. This is more of a minor con. That's only good in raids. It'd be great if we could use it outside of raids. That'd make him even better. Unfortunately, it's only in raids. For his isolate recommendation, I'm saying Raider actually. From my testing, this is what I've been using. It's Raider. I don't believe he needs Skirmisher like everybody else is trying to say. Vision has quite good focus on his own. At level 80, gear 15, he has over 20,000 focus, which is more than enough to land ability blocks and clear positive effects in Doom 3.2 as is. Never mind once you level him to 85 and 90, where you're going to have to pretty much have him to get into to really make him survive and do what he needs to do inside the Doom 3 raids. As we're going up, he'll have plenty of focus to land everything. On top of that, don't forget we have a character on this team, Deathlock, who gives offense up. And when you have offense up, you have yet another 50% focus onto the character. So a character who already has enough focus getting even more focus without Skirmisher is still quite good. He does not need Skirmisher. He is plenty good as a Raider. This will allow him to put some vulnerables up because he does hit multiple targets frequently, and this will allow him to do more damage, especially with that ultimate, which hits quite hard. As for T4 recommendations, his basic is a nice to have. It's kind of kludgy, kind of weird with it. It only applies like offense down to tech characters and stuff like that. It's a nice to have because it does a little bit more damage, hits adjacent characters and that stuff. His special is absolutely required. It might only give him 20% damage, but it's given Viv Vision an extra energy. Anytime we can give extra energy, especially to Viv, we definitely want that. That's why it's required. His ultimate is absolutely required. That gives the minus speed bar. That's removing all the positive effects, doing a whole bunch of damage. Definitely want that. And his passive is required because that's what gives the team the focus boost, which is very good. Especially nowadays when you need the focus to land debuffs and whatnot. And now we go on to his daughter, Viv Vision. Let's take a look at her. Her pros. She gives the Bionic Avengers armor. Armor is a little bit underrated in that it's less damage now that they're going to be taking more armor. She is the healer of the Bionic Avengers, but she only heals the Bionic Avengers. Keep that in mind. She can apply blind to an entire enemy row. She is the first character that hits a specific enemy rows, either the front row or the back row. We only have 2 rows in this game. You pick one, she's going to apply blind to that entire row, plus hit a whole bunch of damage. And her basic, I think, is often overlooked, I should say, that she can apply deflect to the most injured ally on basic or on counter assist. This happens inside or outside of raids, inside or outside of her team. So keep that in mind. If she does it to a Bionic Avenger, though, they get 2 deflect instead of 1. She has a lower cooldown ability block, just like Vision. It's a 4-turn cooldown. That's on her special. And she does generate energy for Bionic Avengers outside of raids. One of the things you see of like Iron Man and Hulkbuster, they are more tied to raids, especially Hulkbuster. But their energy generation is also tied to raids, which kind of sucks. Means that you're limited on how much you really can use them outside. Cons, she has very low focus. That's something to keep in mind as we're going to be talking about ISO. She can only clear Disrupted and Heal Block automatically once per fight per ally. This is on her passive. If you read it, once they drop below 50%, she clears Heal Block and Disrupted, and she puts them in stealth, but she can only do this once per fight per ally. In other words, when Iron Man drops down, gets healed back up, and he gets dropped down again, he's not going to do it again. But anybody else who didn't drop down before and didn't have that happen will happen once. And she only heals the Bionic Avengers, so keep that in mind if you try to do any kind of hybrids with them, or using her outside of raids, maybe like a Dark Dimension or something, that she's only going to heal them. There's nothing on there that says, if it's not a Bionic Avenger, it'll only do like 1% or something like that. As for her ISO 8 recommendation, this one's going to be a little bit weirder, and there's multiple. So we're looking at Skirmishers being the main one if you're less than 6 yellow, 4 red, and doing Doom 3.2 or lower. The reason being, again, she has low focus. You need her to apply Ability Block and Blind and flip things. You need the focus on Viv Vision. She's the Skirmisher, not Vision. If you have her bigger 6 yellow, 4 red, doing Doom 3.2, or if maybe you're taking her to Dark Dimension, you might want to look into a healer for that, just to help with healing. Or you can use Raider as well. But keep in mind, though, once you go into higher Doom difficulties, where the resistance on the enemies becomes higher, you might be going back to Skirmisher. So it makes sense to just stick with Skirmisher on her. As for T4 recommendations, the basic is nice to have. It's always nice to have extra damage and stuff. Special is recommended. It's an okay one. It's not great. It's a pretty good one, I should say. It gives 90% more damage, which is quite nice. That's also the ability block. The ultimate's absolutely required. Instead of just flipping a couple of negatives on Bionic, it flips all. You absolutely want that. And her passive's required. She doesn't give the team any armor unless you have the passive pretty much. So you really definitely want that. And now for Deathlock. This is definitely a character you want high stars on, both yellow and red. His pros, he is very high damage. He's just constantly doing damage, much like Iron Man. That's why you want those high stars on him. Blind has no effect. He's another character like Hawkeye, Daredevil, where he has 200% accuracy instead of 100%. Blind just lowers your accuracy by 100%. So meaning with Blind, it has no effect on him. He still hits everybody. He does generate energy for the Bionic Avengers outside of raids. That's quite nice because a lot of times some of that energy regeneration is tied just to raids. He also gives the Bionic Avengers offense up, which we talked about before. Not only does it give you more damage, it also gives you more focus. And he gives the team more damage over a few different turns. After he takes his turn, like Silver Surfer gets more speed. He gives out not just to himself, but the entire team more damage up to 45%, 15% per turn. And he does have an ability block. He also has high focus, so he's going to be landing it no matter what, pretty much. With the amount of focus he has, it's pretty high. Cons, his basic only gives energy on crit if he has full energy. So you might look at that and think, oh, this is a great ability. Not really, because this means you're going to be ignoring the special and the ultimate when he has it ready to go. I don't know how often you're going to be really getting the use out of that. So keep that in mind. He does have low resistance also, so if somebody tries to hit him with a debuff, he's probably going to get it. As for his ISO 8 recommendation, it's Raider all day long with Iron Man on the team giving extra crit chance and crit damage. You want him to do even more crit chance and crit damage, and he's going to do a ton of it. He does hit hard. T4 recommendations on Deathlock. The basic is nice to have because of the way that energy regeneration works. So keep that in mind. His special is absolutely required. His ultimate's required. And his passive's just a nice to have. What the passive does is just 100% more energy when he gets the 5 charged. What has to happen after his Bionic Avenger allies get energy. He gets 5 charged and he does some damage. So it's kind of a nice to have, don't really need it type thing. So keep that in mind when you're looking at Deathlock and looking at the Bionic Avengers. As far as Hulkbuster goes, I'll talk a little bit. It looks like he may not be the best one to be used outside of raids. His is very much tied to raids. So Bionic Avengers overall, are they worth it? Individually, not on their own. They have to be used as a team. They might be good for the Death Scourge event. We really don't know if they're going to be the team, more than likely, because they're selling it to us. They're the newest one. Generally, the team that's easy to get or easily farmable is not the one. And of course, they are the tech raid team. They are looking very good so far that they are going to be the complete, but we're going to need the complete team, and they're going to have to be built up. So suggested level and gear for them is G15 level 90, because eventually we're going to need them up there. Whether or not we take them to G16 remains to be seen. Maybe, maybe not. And another thing I wanted to point out, they look like a good option for Dark Dimension. We'll have to talk about that in another video, though. Until next time, everybody.